Why was the serpent hanging around the tree of knowledge? Can you answer that question? Well, I'll show you how I answer that question. The serpent was hanging around the tree of knowledge because of what the word knowledge actually meant. And I'll say it again, that the ancient scriptures are made from pictographs, and pictographs had their own meanings, which means each individual letter had their own meaning, and then each word had multiple meanings, just like words in the English language have as multiple meanings. And what was called the tree of knowledge in the original writings was probably best translated as dysfunction. Discernment. Dysfunction was, well, it was the bad side of the tree of knowledge and of function and dysfunction, or discernment of function and dysfunction. Because, well, as I did in a different video, what we look at today as the gift of the spirit of discernment is supposed to be a good thing. Even though it's not portrayed to us when people talk about, back in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, that it was a bad thing. And the bad thing was the function that occurred. That's what the bad thing was, because the function was actually a dysfunction. It was disobedience. And I believe a lot of people do understand, believe, and acknowledge that part, that, you know, that's what the biggest problem was, but they really don't identify what was going on in that scenario of the serpent hanging around the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Well, in the original scriptures, it's best to be shown that that tree of knowledge of good and evil was actually the tree of discernment of function and dysfunction. But whether you use the word knowledge or discernment, you have to understand that there were even more meanings to the word that was used. Now, I'm not going to pull up the word, but I do use what is known as e-sword, and I could pull up the word that was used if I really wanted to, but I'm not going to right now. I'm just going to continue on with this instead of pulling up that ancient word. I guess you're either going to have to trust me in that respect, or you're going to have to look it up for yourself. And it's really easy, and actually, I use the word advise. I would advise you to look up these words yourself. Look at it for yourself. Do not put faith in me. Do not put faith in your religious leaders to give you this information. Look at the words yourself. I can't stress that enough. Look at the ancient words yourself. There are so many meanings with the different words that you might come up with something totally different than what somebody else had come up with. And there might be a really good reason for you to find that information, to gather that information. That information is some kind of strength that's really required and needed in order to continue something good. To continue something good, not evil. To have a function, not a dysfunction. So I can't stress it enough. Keep looking at the ancient words and the ancient letters, and not just the literal meanings, but the symbolic meanings, and especially in the names. Oh my Lord, you wouldn't believe the meaning that's in the names. The names had survived everything. And if you yourself, research what I am talking about, you will see your function, and you will also see how you may have been dysfunctioning. There's two sides. There's two sides. Because if you find out what your real function is and you've been doing the wrong thing, second thing is that you've been dysfunctioning. So anyhow, it's up to you. You're responsible to check these things out. So do it. I already started. There's a lot more to do. There's a lot more. I'm telling you, just the book of Genesis, to do what it is that I'm discussing, a person could do it for years. Years. One book, the first book, for years. But what will that give a person? Well, let's think for a moment. What is the book of Genesis about? Creation, right? How it all started. Isn't that the most important part of the book of Genesis, is how it all started and the function? It also shows the dysfunction that was going on, but it shows a particular function because, you know, when a person gets involved in a religion that involves the Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament, there's something that occurs. Now, with all the first books of the Bible in the beginning, starting from Genesis, from creation, all the way to the book of John, before the book of Revelation, puts a person inside the story. Puts you inside the story. You as an individual decide what's your place in that story. And then you function based on what you believe your function is within that story, within that box. There was a box created for you. From Genesis to John, there was a box created for you. And then when you look at the books of Revelation, you look at that book of Revelation based on that box that was made for you. Are you going to come up with the answer in the box? Or are you going to come up with what your true function is? The only way you can possibly come up with what your true function is to do as I recommend. Look at the old scripture. If you honestly believe in your heart of hearts, that the Bible is the inspired word of God and you are to live by that word, why have you not yet looked at it? Why have you ignored it? You have no excuse any longer. You no longer have excuse. Everything's available to you. I had already informed you of eSword. Unless, well, this could be the first video that you're watching, and it's not fair to say that I already told you about eSword. So I'll tell you, eSword, okay? eSword is a software program available online, and with eSword you can get all different translations, I shouldn't say all, but many translations of the Bible, and you're liable to find the translation that you typically use inside of that program, okay? And you can also find dictionaries that are in there. The Strong's Dictionary is one that's very commonly used. And within the programs there's also links in there. You can click on them that if you don't know what a word means, especially with the Hebrew writings, there's a lot of those. So, you know, it's really good because you have this cross-referencing that goes on between the Bible and the dictionary all within this one location, which is really good when you start looking at the Hebrew. It's especially good for you to be able to look at the Hebrew, because then you can do like I did, and you can get yourself a Hebrew letter chart with symbolic meanings, and then you can start looking up the names that you have question about, or you can look up all the names. But if you just start looking up the names that are in the beginning, such as Yahweh, Elohim, Adam, Eve, or actually, you know, Eve had a title, and you'll find that when you start looking at, if you get the mechanical translation that Mr. Jeff Benner came up with, you can just easily find that, quickly and easily find that. That's why I recommend that you get the mechanical translation. And the Book of Genesis on the online electronic edition is free. It doesn't cost you anything, and you could spend the rest of your life if you wanted to. The rest of your life if you wanted to. Okay, you could spend just in that Book of Genesis, just in the creation part. Do you have to go any further in the Bible? Do you? Do you really? Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. What is your function? What is your function in it? You don't know. How do you know what your function is? Huh? How do you know what your function is? Somebody told you what your function was? Somebody made a box for you, and in that box is your function in the box. That's all you'll ever come up with. That's all you'll ever come up with. So, what are you going to do from there? You're going to find out for yourself and find out. Listen. No matter what church it is you belong to, if you're, let's say, in the Christian so-called faith, there is an event that people are waiting for. And that event is known as the second coming of Jesus Christ. Are you just going to sit down and wait for some appearance in the cloud? You're going to just go to church every week and wait, and wait, and wait, and wait, and wait for Jesus to reappear, as described in the book of Revelation? That he's going to, you're going to see some supernatural event in the sky because you know something? You may wait a long, long time. You may wait your entire life. If you're a so-called Christian, Christ is supposed to be in you. You're supposed to be a representative of Christ. But are you? Only you can answer that. Only you can answer if you're a representative of Christ as far as you think. I can look at you. I can make an informed decision. That informed decision is, well, I see what that person does. I know what I believe Christ's character was, because people, they want to get all hooked up in the superficial. And they get hooked up in the superficial and they start talking about the crucifixion and he was a lamb and a blood sacrifice and it was God on earth and this and that. But when it all comes down to it, are you a follower of him? If you call yourself a Christian, you're supposed to be Christ-like. Do you know what the character of Christ really was? Well, a lot of people, they want to heal people. Shazam! That's what they want to do. That's what they want. That's what they get out of it. That's what they get out of the book. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you about this. Look at the stuff on TV, okay? Look at the people traveling around, making millions and millions of dollars, having their own private jets, flying around the country, getting together, getting in a big stadium, gathering up all these people that have trust in what's going on, and they call it their faith, and they have trust, and it's a very hypnotic event that's going on, and they're letting the person have control of them, and that person is saying, well, this is all about healing, it's about Jesus, and Jesus is about healing because he went and he healed. And they're up there and they're preaching and they're getting into the person's heart and they get into the person's mind, and then they have an altar call, come to Christ, and that's what they do, come. Christ is supposed to be in you. Where you going? Where you going? Christ is supposed to be in you. Where you going? Think about it. Where you going? Well, you see the others. They go up there. They have a problem. They tell people they have a problem, and they're upset, and they don't feel good, and they need help. They need a healing. And I've watched it many times. I've seen preachers. They put their hand on the person's forehead and pop, shazam! They're healed. Wow, this is a great miraculous event. Play the music, woohoo! La 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 la, and they dance. And you know something? That works for some people. For whatever it was that their problem was, that works for some people. But what is actually occurring? What is the function that's occurring? Is that person up there Christ-like? Would Christ buy jets and fly around the country or fly around the world to do that? Was that his major function? Was it? Think about it. It's written about Jesus healed people. Yes, he did. That's what it's written about. People say, wow, the whole major function of Jesus was to be crucified on the cross. I don't want to go there. Didn't he tell you don't have to? Didn't the book, did you at least get this out of the book? Didn't the book tell you that he was going to be crucified for you? For you? Do you know what that really means? It means you can do what Jesus did, and you don't have to be murdered. You don't have to be a martyr. There are people sitting in their church pews, right? Going to church every Sunday, sitting in their pew, waiting for the rapture, thinking about how it's going to be a grand thing, and they read about the book of Revelation, and it's going to be wonderful, and they're going to be raptured, and they're going to be dead. There are people looking to kill you. There are people looking to kill you for your religion. That's how they're going to rapture you. They're going to rapture you right upside your head, and they're probably going to cut your head off. Is that the function that you're going to serve? Are you going to serve that function? Because you were already told you don't have to go that route. It's done. It's done. You don't have to go that route. So what function do you serve? Think. What function do you serve? I know a function I serve. I don't have to be killed. I don't have to be martyred. You know what I have to do? Keep doing what I'm doing. I'll get better at it. I just have to keep doing what I'm doing. And if you know the story of Jesus Christ, if you know the meanings of the words involved, do you know the meaning of the word Jesus Christ? Do you know the meaning in ancient Hebrew? I don't have the meaning of that off the top of my head. How about we take the Greek? See, there's a lot of Greek meaning going on there. Jesus means healer. What does Christ mean? People say, well, it means the anointed. No, it doesn't. Not really. It means the action to anoint. It means to smear. That's what they did. They smeared. And that's what it means. That's the true meaning of it. I'm not lying here. Check it out for yourself. The Greek meaning of Christ means to anoint. Not the anointed one, which you've been told. It means to anoint, the action to smear. So what is your job if you're a follower of Christ? Huh? Can't you see him? Can't you see him going up there? And the crowd is there. Jesus Barabbas on one side of Christ, and the crowd is being asked who to spare. Do we spare Jesus Barabbas? Do you know what Barabbas means? It means son of the Father. That's what your religion has said, that has told you what Christ is, son of the Father. So it went. Crowd, do you want the healer, son of the Father? Or do you want the healer, the shmearer, which means to anoint? But we know what it really means. You want to know what it really means? It means to smear the truth. That is how you're going to anoint. That is how you're going to anoint as a follower, as a true follower of Jesus Christ. That is how you're going to anoint. You're going to anoint by smearing truth. And you're going to smear truth the same place that Jesus Christ smeared truth, and that was on the religious institutions, the major religious institutions, the big ones, okay? The major ones. You're going to smear truth there, and you're going to smear truth at the major governments of the world. Then and only then will you see the second